If there were a contest for the most mysterious ancient civilization, the Maya would undoubtedly take first place, leaving behind not only the Sumerians and Egyptians, but also their neighbors, the Aztecs and Incas. This people, who did not know metals, built pyramids that rival the Egyptian ones in beauty and durability, and even the Romans would envy their roads. The Spaniards were amazed when they first encountered the Maya, although by that time, the best days of this civilization were long gone. Even today, the Maya continue to fascinate scholars, and not only them. Just remember the commotion caused by the end of the world, which the ancient Maya supposedly predicted for 2012. The history of the Maya still contains many gaps, even though their study has been ongoing for a long time. But for now, we don't even know what these people actually called themselves because the name Maya was invented by Europeans. But the biggest mystery is what caused the decline of this civilization, why its beautiful cities and temples were abandoned. In this episode, we will talk about how the ancient Maya lived, what they did, what they believed in, how they built their magnificent cities. You will learn about the political structure of the Maya state, its economy, achievements in science, and the entertainment of its people. My name is Semen, and I declare the section How Did They Live open. Let's begin. Subtitle editor Semkin Igorova. Who were the Maya and where did they come from? Editor, Maya. One of the greatest civilizations on the American continent, which grew on the legacy of earlier cultures in the region, Olmecs, Zapotecs, and other peoples. The Maya. They lived in southern Mexico, as well as in what is now Guatemala, Honduras, and Belize. Descendants of the indigenous people still live here today. To date, about 1,000 Maya cities and several thousand of their settlements have been discovered, but not all of them have been studied by scientists. Moreover, there is no doubt that the jungle still hides many more Maya cultural monuments. It is often said that European colonizers destroyed the ancient cultures of America, but that's not entirely true. Indeed, the only truly ancient civilization was the Maya, which was actually contemporary with ancient Greece and Rome. It is generally believed that the Maya civilization emerged as early as the 3rd millennium before Christ. Its history is divided into 3 chronological periods: the pre-classic, classic, and post-classic. In the pre-classic period from 2000 to 250 before Christ, the first Native American city-states emerged, slash-and-burn agriculture was developed, and technologies for making textiles, pottery, tools, and implements appeared. Around 700 before Christ, the Maya developed writing, and the earliest known Maya solar calendar dates back to 400 before Christ. At this time, cities like Nakbe and El Mirador emerged, where the largest Maya pyramid, standing 72 meters tall, was discovered. The Classic period is the time of the Maya civilization's flourishing. It began around 250 before Christ and lasted until the 9th century AD. During this time, Maya culture spread throughout the entire Yucatan Peninsula, and many large and bustling cities appeared, each ruled by its own cult. It was during the Classic period that Coba, Chichen Itza, and Uxmal emerged. In this era, Maya cities built acropolises, ceremonial complexes dozens of meters high, which included pyramids, palaces, and other structures. In some cities, there were also observatories, towers with places for observing planets and stars. In the 9th century, the decline of the Maya civilization began. There was a rapid decrease in population, complex irrigation systems fell into disuse, and stone structures stopped being built in the cities. In the 10th century, the Toltecs invaded the north of Yucatan, beginning a century of fratricidal wars, famine, and epidemics. The arrival of the Spanish colonizers put an end to this chaos, marking the beginning of a new period in Maya history, the colonial era. Surprisingly, it took the Spanish as many as 170 years to fully conquer the Maya. The Indian strength was their fragmentation and lack of a single center. The conquerors had to take one city-state after another, while simultaneously suppressing numerous uprisings in the territories they had already captured. The last Maya city, Tayasal, was subdued by Spain only in 1697. Political structure. Throughout their long history, the Maya never managed to create a centralized state comparable even to the kingdoms of the ancient world. Even in the early classic period, they developed a system of rival city-states, each ruled by its own royal dynasty. This was somewhat reminiscent of the ancient Greek city-states. The Maya city-states shared similarities in their systems of governance as well as in most cultural aspects, such as language, writing, religious beliefs, and astronomical knowledge. On average, the city-states covered 2,000 to 3,000 square kilometers. In addition to the capital, they included smaller towns and small settlements. Of course, there were exceptions, such as Tekal or Calakmul, which controlled significantly larger territories. Some of the Maya cities were real metropolises with populations of over 50,000 people. Each city was headed by a hereditary ruler. His legitimacy was largely based on his special status as a sacred person who had the ability to make direct contact with the gods. This most important function of the ruler was reflected in the adjective kukul, which meant sacred, and was included in royal titles. Each of the kings had his own personal guardian spirit. For example, the rulers from the city of Sul had a totem of a deer with a serpent's head standing on its hind legs. The Maya kings regularly participated in various religious activities, which is reflected in many drawings and texts from the classic period. Although there were indeed many states, they were not equal in terms of their power. On the contrary, the Maya political system was based on clear principles of hierarchy. In the hieroglyphic inscriptions, a special term was even found to designate a subordinate dependent ruler. In general terms, this resembled the model of relations between a suzerain and a vassal in medieval Europe. The dominance of one kingdom over another was manifested in various forms: payment of tribute, participation of dependent rulers, wars on the side of their suzerain, and providing workers for construction. Maya society was not peaceful at all. City-states were constantly at war with each other. Rulers gladly added epithets to their names indicating the number of enemies they had captured or battles they had won. They were constantly depicted trampling their captives. This was no coincidence because on the battlefield the Maya aimed not to kill the enemy but to capture him. The fate of the captives was unenviable. At best, they became slaves, but most often they were sacrificed on the altar. And this applied not only to ordinary warriors, but also to commanders and even rulers. Captured nobles or kings were humiliated in every possible way, subjected to the most sophisticated tortures, and then publicly executed or sacrificed on the altars. That's why wars were often started not for political reasons, but to avenge tortured relatives. The ancient Maya did not know about metals, nor did they have bows and arrows. Opponents engaged in close combat, where the main weapons were clubs, stone axes, and spears with flint tips. Throwing darts with special spear throwers were also used, and the main piece of protective equipment was a round or square shield. The army marched to the sound of drums, dressed in bright costumes and carrying banners to boost the soldiers' morale. In addition, the Maya carried statues of their gods into battle in special palanquins. They believed that not only people participated in the battle, but also gods who protected different sides. Capturing the statue of an enemy god was considered very prestigious. After that, the battle usually stopped. The Maya didn't have draft animals or wheeled transport, so the warriors had to carry all their supplies themselves or obtain them in battle. For this reason, wars usually didn't last long and covered only a small area. Economy and cities of the Maya. The basis of Maya agriculture was slash and burn farming. A section of jungle was cleared, then the trees and bushes were burned, and the ashes were used to fertilize the soil. As the population grew, the Indians began to build terraces on the slopes of mountains and hills. They also drained swamps, creating a highly advanced irrigation system with dams and canals. On their fields, the Indians grew squash, beans, cotton, cacao, and a variety of tropical fruits. The Maya engaged in active trade, both domestic and foreign. In their cities, items from the coasts of both oceans have been found. They traded fish, maize, fruits, slaves, obsidian, jade, shells, shark teeth, and other gifts of the sea. The Maya did not have money as such. Instead, they used other equivalents, such as salt or cacao beans. The latter were especially popular among the Maya because they were lightweight, took up little space, and did not spoil. And another advantage was that you could always make a fragrant, invigorating drink from them. The prices of goods and services in terms of cacao beans have come down to us, which were already compiled by the Spanish conquistadors. For example, a slave cost 100 cacao beans and a rabbit cost 10. But a visit to a prostitute cost only 8 beans, which is cheaper than a rabbit. Such prices outraged the Spanish officers because the soldiers would run to the native brothels whenever they had the chance. People even tried to counterfeit cocoa beans, removing their contents and filling the pod with clay. The Maya hardly used gold, valuing jade and serpentine much more. The centers of political and economic life for the Maya were, of course, their cities. The Maya's architectural knowledge was so advanced that what they built still inspires awe and amazement today. Usually, in the central part of the city, there were palaces, temples, tombs, and ball courts. Here lived the king and his family, as well as the ruling elite. The scale of the buildings is astonishing. Some Mayan pyramids are even larger than the Egyptian ones, even though their builders knew neither the wheel nor metal. The facades and interiors of the buildings were richly decorated with bas-reliefs and frescoes depicting rituals, gods, and military scenes. Window lintels, palace staircases, and stelae were adorned with intricate carvings and covered with texts that told the stories of the Mayan cities. There was an advanced communication system. For example, in Palenque, there was running water and sewage, something that only appeared in European capitals in the 19th century. The Maya built thousands of kilometers of first-class roads, which were equal in quality to the famous Roman roads. They included bridges, road stations, and even temples. So that a traveler could pray on the road, a person walking along the road was considered a guest and could not be harmed. Violators faced severe punishments, up to and including the death penalty. The beliefs and rituals of the Maya were highly religious. They created a complex religious system with many elaborate rituals and ceremonies that developed over many centuries. Originally, the Maya, like any other ancient civilization, worshipped the forces of nature, the sun, the moon, the rain, lightning, and so on, and so it remained over time. They developed a complex pantheon of gods. Since the Maya were primarily an agricultural civilization, their deities were closely connected to agriculture. The main crop for the indigenous people was corn, so they believed that the creator god Hunab made humans from an ear of corn. The Great Mother, the goddess Talea, played an active role in this process. The Maya also believed that there had already been 3 civilizations on the planet, and each of them was washed away by a universal flood. We are the 4th, and we are destined for exactly the same fate. As for the gods, the Maya had many of them, including such exotic ones as the goddess of the North Star, or the moon, who was in the pantheon. The Indians even had a goddess of suicides, who was always depicted with a noose around her neck. By the way, suicide was not considered something bad or sinful among the Maya, and in fact, unlike most of the great world religions, their belief system did not even have the concept of sin. The most revered god among the Maya was the sky god Itzamna, and the rain god Chak was also highly respected because the harvest depended on him. The third most important was the god of maize, whose name unfortunately we do not know. Another interesting point is that the Maya considered the gods to be mortal beings. Their pantheon included child gods and elder gods, and human blood was needed to sustain their lives. And here we come to the most famous Maya ritual, human sacrifice. It should be said that the Maya performed human sacrifices much less frequently than, for example, the Aztecs. Usually, this happened only on the most important occasions, such as when a ruler ascended the throne or before the start of a military campaign. In the case of a severe drought, people were sacrificed in the most brutal ways. Their hearts were ripped out of their chests, they were buried alive, drowned, or strangled. However, the Maya believed that by ripping a person's heart out of their chest, they were granting them the greatest mercy, because the person would immediately go to the gods in the heavens. But to me, for some reason, it seems that the unfortunate victims would have gladly refused such a fate. The ritual of self-bloodletting was no less gruesome. It consisted of performing the ritual before every important event, whether it was the laying of a new temple, the start of sowing, or the beginning of a military campaign. In front of a large crowd, the king would pierce his own tongue, earlobes, or penis with a special thorn. A rope with thorns was inserted into the wounds and pulled through to make the bleeding more profuse. After the king, the queen performed similar actions on herself. According to the beliefs of the Maya, human blood nourished the gods, and royal blood, apparently, was a real delicacy for them. Another unique Maya ritual was the ball game, something between modern rugby, soccer, and basketball. The goal of the players was to throw a heavy rubber ball into a ring at a height of 6 meters, and they were only allowed to hit the ball with their hips, elbows, or special bats. Sometimes, to make the game more exciting, the heads of enemy commanders or kings were embedded into the ball. The losing team was sacrificed. The game was extremely popular, and every city had a special stadium for it, but it was not just entertainment. For the Maya, the ball game had important ritual significance. It symbolized the transition from the world of the living to the afterlife. Now let's talk about other less bloodthirsty Maya customs. For example, the Maya had special sex festivals that were considered sacred, where young men underwent an initiation rite into manhood. They were taught how to behave during intimacy with a woman, how to arouse her better, and which position to choose for intercourse. But then there was practical training of the knowledge they had received. There were special women for these purposes. Among the Maya, morals were quite liberal in general. Prostitution was widespread, and the priestesses of love charged very modestly, as I have already mentioned. The Maya were just as relaxed about romantic relationships between two men, or rather, adolescents who had not yet started a family. After marriage, such amusements usually stopped, however. Relationships between an adult man and a boy were considered quite normal and acceptable. The Maya also had peculiar ideas about beauty. For example, they liked elongated skulls, considering them a sign of aristocracy. To achieve this effect, a newborn's head was tightly fixed between boards. The child's soft bones would deform and the head would become egg-shaped. The Maya considered crossed eyes a sign of beauty and refinement. To achieve this, they would hang a small ornament or simply a wax ball on the child's forehead. The Maya were real fans of piercing. Even in early childhood, they would pierce a child's earlobes, nostrils, and lips and insert small ornaments into them. As they got older, the ornaments became larger and heavier. The Maya treated their teeth in a completely barbaric way. They filed them to a sharp shape, drilled holes in them to insert precious stones, and covered their teeth with plates of jade or obsidian. By the way, I already mentioned the Maya's reverent attitude toward cacao, the ancestor of everyone's favorite chocolate. So the natives loved cacao, but they consumed it very bitter and spicy, with lots of spices, and there was no sugar at all. It was believed that this drink stimulated brain activity and male potency, which the Maya could be proud of. In many areas, the Maya civilization reached unprecedented heights, although in others it remained almost at the level of the Stone Age. Even from today's perspective, the cultural achievements of the Maya are impressive. Over 1500 years before Columbus's voyages, the Maya created an accurate solar calendar and a complex hieroglyphic script, the only true writing system in the New World. They began to use the concept of zero in mathematics. Before the Indians and Arabs, Maya astronomers could predict solar and lunar eclipses and calculated the path of the planet Venus with a minimal error, only 14 seconds per year. They were also familiar with Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn. The Maya reached the highest level of skill in construction and architecture. They built grand temples and palace complexes, which required precise mathematical calculations to ensure the stability and reliability of the structures. The Maya could boast the most advanced medicine in pre-Columbian America. Native doctors had an excellent knowledge of human anatomy and were able to diagnose many diseases. Maya surgeons achieved remarkable heights. They removed tumors and cataracts, treated fractures, performed trepanations of the skull, and even carried out plastic surgeries. Anesthesia was used during operations. Among the smaller achievements of the Maya are the invention of chewing gum and the hammock, as well as the domestication of crops such as avocado, cacao, chili pepper, squash, potato, sunflower, tobacco, tomatoes, and manioc. Why did they disappear? The reasons for the decline of the Maya civilization are one of the most intriguing mysteries in world history. Today, scientists tend to believe that the indigenous people fell victim to climate changes that led to severe, prolonged droughts. The fields no longer produced enough food to feed the large population, and people began to leave the cities. The drought hit the southern territories inhabited by the Maya the hardest. It is likely that such a disaster was accompanied by various social upheavals, catastrophes, wars, uprisings, civil conflicts, and epidemics. The ecological theory of the decline of the Maya civilization is considered the main one today. It is supported by archaeological research and computer modeling results. A few words in conclusion. The Maya is one of the most interesting cultures in human history. Unfortunately, not everything is known about it, but every year we learn more and more about the Maya. New discoveries by scientists only prove how majestic this civilization was, building monumental structures and studying the stars when the ancestors of the Europeans who conquered them were still savages, the Iberians. Well, that's all from me. See you in the next episode. Bye.